you very much, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I appreciate the member for Liverpool Wavertree for bringing forward this debate, which is coming at a time between I suppose, the fairly mooted 5-year anniversary of the peace agreement and the elections that come next month, and which will really set the direction for the implementation of that peace agreement. I visited Colombia earlier this month, along with my honourable friend from Argyll and Butte, at the invitation of AB Colombia, which, as many members will know, is a coalition of key Irish and British international NGOs, including Trócaire and Oxfam and Christian Aid, who accompanied our visit. And when we were there, we met with representatives of both of the agencies, with elected representatives, with the United Nations, with those processing peace, with former combatants, and crucially with local communities who are already engaged in doing so much in the shocking and perilous situation on the ground in terms of the protection of human rights and the protection of those who stand up for them. As members have outlined, Colombia's conflict spanned over 5 decades, with a death toll of around 250,000, including 5,000 children, including, as others have said, 25,000 disappearances where people didn't even have the dignity of a body to bury, and clearly many millions more displaced due to a conflict which is at its core, among other things, around land. And I think that is clearly the substantial and core unimplemented part of the peace agreement. Those issues are exacerbated by clearly a residual level of violence within the country, and with impunity, and what it appears from I suppose, a fairly casual observer. The state is at best absent, and at worst complicit in many of these violent human rights abuses. And of course this should concern us morally, but also because the situation is very much exacerbated by extractive industries who are exploiting Colombia's natural resources in a way that is accruing large profit to a very small number of people, is accruing benefit and material goods to those of us here, but is leaving only negative social and environmental impacts for the local communities. Our visit focused on the effects of mining in the Guajira region to the northeast near the Venezuelan border, and on the Cerrejón mining company, which is owned exclusively by the giant Glencore, and which clearly treats Indigenous communities as an inconvenience. And we also looked at the failure of national and transnational governance structures that seem unwilling or unable to deliver justice and rights and fair play for those communities. We met communities in the Sierra Nevada who had been displaced with woefully inadequate resettlement packages, or who are threatened by displacement by this massive mine. And it is literally hundreds of kilometres of open cast. It's the biggest mine in Latin America, and it is a shocking and violent, in fact, vista, this massive, wherever you look, crater in the environment, which I suppose looms over and oppresses people, I suppose, visually every time they look, and in terms of the impact of their environment. They have had the air around them, the soil underneath their feet, the water that they depend on, polluted by mining practices, and with a sharp increase in disease. And some have already had their water supply diverted, or risk having that water supply diverted, in order to satisfy the mine's insatiable need for water. We visited the Arroyo Bruno. Your Spanish is better than mine, I'll say to the member, but around which communities have lived and grown sustainably for many hundreds of years, and who now face an existential risk to their existence and their human rights. and particularly a risk to those who are attempting to stand up for it. It's worth saying that these developments have almost no spillover economic benefit for the communities. Workers are trucked in, the materials that supply the mine are trucked in, and coal is noisily and dustily trucked out. We drove past this train that literally you're driving past it for 10 minutes, the length of it, that just at all hours of the day and night spills out coal dust. So these communities, as I say, their basic human rights to I suppose, somewhere to live, as they have done for years, is not being protected. They have not had the opportunity to feel the benefits of peace and security that they should have been able to do at the end of the conflict. This water is sold back to them in plastic containers, and I suppose, as they say, there's no benefit whatsoever to them. We are rightly confronting the human rights implications of our dependence on Russian hydrocarbons, and it is appropriate that we focus on the impact in other areas as well. It's worth saying coal is over. Everybody knows that mine and many others will close in the coming years, but it is important that we use our influence to ensure that there is a just transition for these communities and other communities whose rights have been abused, and that these issues aren't lost, I suppose, in the implementation of the peace deal. I tried not to do that Northern Irish thing where you overlay and you view every single international issue through the prism that we've grown up in. I must say it is very encouraging and I think courageous that they are upfront dealing with the issues of truth and justice as a prerequisite for reconciliation. Living somewhere where for 25 years the truth, we've just tried to keep closing the door to it and allow the perpetrators on various sides to move on with their lives, and for victims not to have that clarity and that release of justice. It is very courageous indeed that they are confronting that head on. The Truth Commission, we understand, will publish their report on which they have engaged heavily a couple of weeks after the presidential election, come what may. But I suppose what was very clear to me, and what I hope members here will be able to use our influence to ensure, is that those crucial issues of land reform and the role of land abuse, land theft, and I suppose accruing of resources is not lost as we implement the peace deal. It is very clear that accompaniment and scrutiny is very, very important in this country. Colombia rightly is interested in what the world thinks about it. Rightly, it has an interest in transitioning to clean sources of energy, but it is vitally important that their approaches and their governance approaches, as they implement this deal, bring forward a new approach to how they manage and serve and deal with Indigenous communities. Thank you.